Hello, good morning, and welcome back to our spiritual drill for 10th September. From what we have been doing, the parable of husbandmen in Luke chapter 20, we understood from it that the fact that God did not only show his great patience and love, but also his righteous judgment on those who reject his son. Today, let us look at what Romans 11:21 to 25, what he says, to see how God's righteous judgment on those who reject his son should motivate us to live accountably to him. I read it with Good News Translation, and it reads, God did not spare the Jews who are like natural branches. Do you think he will spare you? Here we see how kind and how severe God is. He is severe towards those who have fallen, but kind to you if you continue in his kindness. But if you do not, you too will be broken off. And if the Jews abandon their unbelief, they will be put back in the place where they were. For God is able to do that. You Gentiles are like the branch of a wild olive tree that is broken off, and then, contrary to nature, is joined to a cultivated olive tree. The Jews are like this cultivated tree, and it would be much easier for God to join these broken off branches to their own tree again. So, beloved, looking at verse 22 that I've just read, our Luke 20 parable illustrates what Paul is saying also. Behold then the kindness and severity of God. So there's an aspect of God's kindness and there's an aspect of his severity. God's kindness is seen in his sending far more servants to rebellious Israel than she deserved. But his severity is seen when these wicked tenant farmers killed the son only, and what they met was God's judgment. Jesus pronounces the judgment that the owner of the vineyard will come and destroy these vine growers and will give the vineyard to others. If you look at that, Luke 20 verse 16. What should this prompt us to do? For them, what they exclaimed was, "May it never be." It shocked them to think of such a terrible thing. But do you know that judgment has happened? Yes, it took place when the Roman general Titus destroyed the city and the Jews were scattered all over. They lost their place of privilege as God's covenant nation. So that must teach us a lesson. God grafted us, the Gentile nations, to accomplish his purpose until the fullness of the Gentiles has come in, according to our text, Romans 11 I read. If you look at verse 25, as Paul points out, we should not boast, but fear, or God could remove us and use some other group to fulfill his purpose. The point is, if we who profess to be God's people live selfishly and do not bear fruit in his vineyard, he will do what? He will chuck us out and raise up others. There's always a available substitute, better even. We need to apply this not just to the church out there, but also to ourselves. We miss the point if we think that this parable was given to unbelievers. No, it was given to men who profess to know God, to national religious leaders, But they wrongly thought that they owned the vineyard, which is why I started with who owns the vineyard. Like some men of God would think that it is their ministry, my ministry. Really? Those tenant farmers were using it for their own selfish purposes. As a result, they rejected Jesus' rightful place as the owner of the vineyard. Hear me and get the truth in. The church is not anyone's church. It is not the pastors, the bishops. No, it is not your church, my church. It is the Lord's church. He's the owner of the vineyard. If he allows us to walk in his vineyard, we are blessed. We are privileged. Any work that we do in the vineyard is not for us. It is for the owner. We need to be careful, because it's easy to start enjoying the grapes in the vineyard and then begin to think it's all right. It's personally gratifying to serve the Lord. Yes, for example, we like the nice things people say to us, and we enjoy being used by God, don't you? All of this is fine as long as we remember that it's his vineyard and that all that we do is for him. But if we start serving for what we get out of it and drift into thinking that it's our ministry, this is when we usurp the rightful place of the owner. And it's very dangerous. If we keep going in that direction, he may come and remove us from our place of service in the vineyard. So we must be careful. God expects fruit from his people. His great patience and grace, seen in the many messengers he sends to us when we get off track, should do what? Motivate us to bear fruit. His great love, seen in his sending his beloved Son, should also motivate us to live accountably before him. His righteous judgment on those who reject his Son and usurp ownership of the vineyard should do what? Motivate us to live accountably always to him. So, beloved of God, God's grace and patience should not lead us to carelessness with what he has handed over to us. We must always see this assignment as a privilege, and as such handle it with our utmost care and caution. Sometimes we are careless to consider every place as our assigned post, but not so. If we carefully listen to the owner of the vineyard, you will discover that he came to a particular vineyard. It's where we are assigned to occupy that our reward comes from. God rewards faithfulness, and faithfulness isn't here and there. I like to pray for as many as have forgotten who owns the vineyard and what their assignment should be, that our merciful and gracious Father will open our eyes of understanding to know where we have missed it and be humbly restored to our duty post so as to bear much fruit for his glory. In Jesus' mighty name I pray with thanksgiving. Amen.